public hearing on our CARES money, and should I? Oh, yes. You had authorized us to go to a public hearing on the CARES money, but after talking further with the county attorney and the auditor, they said because of how you had granted you had passed an emergency ordinance during COVID, allowing the county administrator to authorize transactions, that it really wasn't necessary to go to public hearing, whereas we normally would have, and that at this point in time, all that was really needed was for you to authorize the budget supplements, which sort of ratified the decisions that were made during that time.
And that's the same on C as well.
Yes.
And for the auditors, we have completely listed where we have spent our monies.
They were here last week and looked through
Everything. And they were pleased?
I don't know, how can you tell what the They asked a lot of questions, we gave a lot of answers, and a lot of staff paperwork.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion we approve of the revenue and expenditure budget supplement in the amount of $51,384 for election cares funding.
I'll second.
First and second, will be our discussion.
Is this something that we need to do tonight, or would it be something that we could get a printout of all the CARES money? I don't know if we had to do it tonight, or if we need to do it at our next meeting.
Scott Wickham, our auditor, recommended it be tonight.
Okay.
I could show you.
You've given it to us in the past, I don't have that with me, so, that's my only hesitation.
If you have it readily available.
Well, I thought you meant to see the invoice. I said, I got it.
Oh, no, not the invoices. No, I was just thinking about the overall for each, because the next one is gonna also.
Yeah, I got it through March 31st, and to quickly print that out. I have not done it through June 30th, which is our next reporting period.
Which isn't here yet.
Correct.
Right, so it wouldn't be available yet.
But you can print the items that you have to.
I would print out the summary by category and reporting period for what we've done through March 31st.
Mr. Chair, if you want to continue to do that, we can skip forward, we can skip forward if you'd like to do other things, and she could do that. I believe there's,
I think you need to withdraw our motion.
Yeah. Up to you. I'm just saying from my personal standpoint, I would prefer to have.
Well, I remember this. I remember this one on B.
I just
That's
don't
why
have an individual numbers, so for me to vote for something.
I remember about that one.
it was second.
Will you withdraw the second?
I'll withdraw the second on the motion on the table.
Sorry, Gary.
And then we'll bring it back up when
We're
they're.
dealing with millions of dollars.
Well,
in
that's
high
the next
school.
one, yeah. I didn't mind the first one. I was
And
gonna
we'll pass over the C1 thing.
All right, then, Mr. Chair, while Cindy's getting that, if you would like, we can move on to the next category, which are appointments. And you will see your first item there under D is the appointment of Mr. Philip Belcher to the Western Virginia Emergency Medical Services Council to fill a position expiring December 31, 2022. As you recall, we had someone who was in that role for a very, very long time and is no longer going to be serving at the request, and so our EMS director has opted to step up.
The previous one was in it from it was either 76 or 78.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Is there any requirement that this person has to be from the county? That was my only question on residency. I don't know, I'm just asking if it could be.
We're stumping the band today. They're asking Cindy if there's a requirement for them to be prominent. Yeah.
I do not know. I do not know.
I'm sorry. It's something I thought about when I
Yeah.
was sitting there. Yeah. Some boards it would be, but I don't know if this one would. Probably wouldn't, but.
Yeah, they did not send me, unlike some of these others, I did not get
Yeah,
anything from the organization.
Right. And I've never, because the same person served there forever, I'm assuming it could be anybody.
I will see what I can find if you guys go through this.
I'm just throwing the rest of it. We'll certainly make it up here.
And then we're gonna have to table E, I guess.
Oh, we got an application unless you want to interview the person.
I understand what I'm saying. Yeah, that's right.
And as for date, you've got E. No.
So, Mr. Chair, I think that what you have before you is what had been requested. So the funding that had been received through the CARES Act and then the amount that was expended. My understanding and looking through the files is that you all authorized my predecessor in kind of large categories, with some exceptions, of how to spend the funds. And so this is and that was that emergency powers that Cindy was talking about earlier. And so you'll see before you, of course, the results of the reports that were submitted and been accepted for June 2020, September 2020, December 2020, and March 2021. And then you'll see, of course, the amount that is still obligated. And total expenditures to date is a little over $2.7 million, $2,707,68.55 exactly. And so that means of the original CARES fund, you have $41,000 remaining. And most recently, most of that has been expended for the small costs related to the vaccine clinics. And very much thanks to, as a note of personal privilege, if I might, for Cindy and Kevin and our staff, and then of course Portia from Farmhouse and Eco Village for all their help, and also Ms. Cooknook and several of you all who volunteered to make that all a great effort.
So thank you, Cindy, for all of your work, and Kevin's as well.
I might notify Mr. Chair with the new funding that would be coming forward, because we wouldn't be under the same emergency powers, that we would be having a public hearing, and I even mentioned to you that if you all are supportive about a grant process going forward. But obviously at the time you all took these actions and Ms. Morris took these actions, it was very different time than it is today.
I don't know if anybody has an answer for this, but when do the emergency authorization powers end?
It's every 6 months you redo them, and they were redone. I looked this up just the other day. It was, I want to say November, so they're about ready to expire.
Okay?
Given where things are at, I don't know that they need to be extended, given where unless it's within the next month or so, there's another major reversal.
The key was to get when everyone who wanted a vaccine could have a vaccine. Those did.
We're
Go back, get on the way.
at that point.
Back there.
We are at that point.
I'm ready to get back to the 11B. I'm sorry for that. Thank you, Cindy, for providing that information.
I'll make a motion as I did before and authorize the approval of revenue and expenditure for the budget supplement in the amount of $51,384 for election cares funding.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right, that was 11B. Mr. Chair, also related to this is 11C, approval of revenue and expenditure budget supplement in the amount of $1,685,520. $374.40 for regular categories and $311,480 for broadband for CARES funding received. And again, those numbers jointly are reflected on the sheet before you. And approval of that budget supplement is an action item, Mr. Chair.
And I think with the broadband, that was where we worked with citizens on expanding broadband through the BOS.
Through the grant
Through the grant process, but, so that was good to be able to use it with them because it was using, some other monies along with it.
Yeah.
And there's a number of households that now have it that wouldn't have.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve the revenue and expenditure budget supplement in the amount of $1,685,520 of CARES funding.
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
All right. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, that completes 11C. Moving back to appointments. D, appointment of Philip Belcher to the Western Virginia Emergency Medical Services Council. I have not been able to find anything readily on their webpage that lists the requirements of being on the council. I would note that, of course, we are in that group, as is Patrick.
Well, I'd move that we appoint Mr. Belcher contingent on the fact that he is eligible, just to be sure. If you were to find that he wasn't, then
Come back.
it could come back. But I think he's obviously an excellent choice. It came to mind that that might be a requirement.
I'll second that motion if you're ready.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That was 11D. 11E, as you know, you did receive one application for the appointment to the Floyd County Economic Development Authority, but we did not have time to schedule that yet for you. So would you like to I'm assuming that you would probably like to meet that person. So would you like to table this till the next meeting and that person's availability? All right.
I would be more comfortable with those.
That is absolutely.
Well, I think it's a benefit for both sides. It's a benefit for us, but it's also a benefit for someone that may be applying for a position that they get to know the board as well.
And we want to make sure they're a fit for that particular gig as well.
I think we probably could have a day meeting. Have a day meeting.
We will reach out to that person and try to make that happen. Yeah.
If it's convenient for you.
Okay, then here the next item is actually, I guess it would be F1 almost, appointment to the New River Community College Board for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2021 and expiring June 30, 2025. That is an action item.
I move that we appoint Ms. Link to fill that 4-year term.
A second.
Motion and second, any other discussion?
All right, thank you. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Then, Mr. Chair, we can move, if you'd like, to 11G, reappointment John McInhill to the New River Community Action Board for a 2-year term beginning July 1, 2021 and expiring June 30th, 2023.
And there were no other people that had applied, correct? Is that right? And John has done a great job.
He's been there for some time.
Yes, he has. It's a wealth of experience and knowledge.
You want to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? On the roll?
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Cookenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next page. 8, reappointments of Mr. Klein Hall and Mr. Carl Kempa to the Uniform Statewide Building Code Local Board of Appeals, each for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2021 and expiring June 30th, 2025.
I would make that motion if it's appropriate, that both be reappointed.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion?
They were the only two that applied, isn't it?
Oh, they didn't really apply.
Right. Everybody were willing to do it.
Roll call roll.
All right. So, Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Yoder.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, item I, reappointment of John McInhill to the Floyd County Social Services Board for a 4-year term beginning July 1, 2021 and expiring June 30, 2025. And this is an action item.
Again, no one else? Correct.
I'll make that motion to reappoint Mr. McInhill.
I'll second.
No other discussion? Call the roll.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. And your final appointment of the evening, appointment of Ms. Sarah Akers Campbell to the Virginia Action Safety Program for a 1-year term. And that is a correction, a 1-year term beginning July 1, 2021 and expiring June 30th, 2022. And that is an action item. And again, clarify, this is an update for a 1-year term, not a 2-year term, as on the agenda previously.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we appoint Ms. Campbell to that position, and I'd also like to say thank you to our current individual that's serving, and thank Mr. Doug for his many, many years of service. And I think that it's just it's something that we should all strive for, is that when you see someone else, if you've done something a long time and see someone else that's interested, it's an honorable thing to say that you are willing to step aside and let someone younger take those roles. And so thank you, Doug, for being willing to do that.
I second that. And I also thank Doug for many years ago, we first appointed him.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug.
All
Go ahead.
right, Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Cookenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All right. Now we're moving to other items. And this is your structured action item, I believe. K, authorize the county administrator to execute the contract with the Department of Housing and Community Development for the Community Development Block Grant Housing Rehabilitation Project. As you all know, this is a project that Medina, Tabitha, Carlo, many others worked on extensively. And so the paperwork has finally come through, and so this is to authorize me to go ahead and execute that contract. And thanks to them for all that great work.
And as far as we know, we've compared it, and this is pretty much the same agreement, that no changes or anything that we're aware of.
Correct. And it does have kind of the standard CDBG, DHCD kind of language that they have in their contract.
Was that information?
Talked about this for a long time. I move that we approve and authorize the correct folks to sign.
I'll second that motion.
Motion is second, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Hickenlooper?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
And Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and sign that and we'll start moving forward. The next couple of items that are on here are pretty much until closed, just a couple of discussion items from myself and on behalf of the staff. As you know, the first one there is related to the American Rescue Plan Act funding. The guidance, the interim guidance is out. It is 151 pages. And it is, a copy of it is marked up extensively in my office. The uses of the funds do appear to be a little bit more limited than we had originally hoped. While there is potentially some opportunity for several things like we've done before and a variety of options around continued assistance for folks that have been impacted by COVID. One of the commonalities for everything except for the infrastructure pieces, and I'll go back to those, is strong language around needing to show the connection to COVID, the economic impact, the health impact of COVID, and they even have some language in there related to not just forecasting that there might be some problems, but to really draw a strong link between whatever you're proposing and COVID and the negative health and economic effects of that. I have started the process to put us on the list to draw that money down. One of the things that's a little bit different this time is the money does not go through the state. It's supposed to come straight through from the Treasury. And the town's money will also come to them directly, which is a change. As you will recall, the amount that will be available to Floyd County will be approximately $3.1 million. And my understanding is the amount that would be available to the town is somewhere probably around $400,000. Because you may hear some things that say the funds can be spent on things like affordable housing and some other items. While that is allowed, most of that is tied to us having a qualified census tract or census tracts, which means in some way a high poverty, high minority population county or portion of the county. And we do not have any census tracts that qualify at this point, so we have to stay to the main rules. The other thing I would note, though, is the infrastructure piece includes water, sewer, and broadband opportunities, and it can be used for things related to clean water, recognizing the link to public health, and so the link to COVID does not need to be quite as tight, it appears, for that. And of course, broadband, the public health reason for that is so folks can have the opportunity to telework, teleschool, and make sure those things are available. So that's what the connection is for those pieces. There is still, this is a temporary interim rule. There will be a permanent rule. And there continue to be series of webinars and those kind of things from the advocacy groups as we move forward. And I did talk to our county attorney today a little bit. They have a working group inside Sands Anderson trying to go through and see how this can best be utilized effectively and appropriately by their clients. So he will report to us on that when they finish their work. The first tranche of money should be potentially available here very shortly, about half the funds, and then the other half will be available in a year. If we had a qualifying census tract, our money could be drawn down more quickly, but we do not, so we cannot draw down our funding more quickly, at least not at this time. So that's kind of what I have learned in reading all of that and doing some work. And I've talked to Kayla and I have talked a little bit as well about trying to make sure we have a common understanding between the county and the town about what's allowed and what's not allowed. So we're trying to pick each other's brains a lot. And as you recall, I had suggested in our last meeting that we look at putting together a brief grant application that folks would be able to fill out, including our own departments. I clarified that with the staff, that I would ask our departments to do the same. And in that, draw that direct line between COVID economic impact, public health COVID, and this funding to assist in the audit process. I think everything that happened before was perfectly appropriate, but now we've learned that it would be easier to have some of that paperwork up front. And so that would make everyone's life a lot easier to make it very clear that we did the right thing and you all did the right thing.
Can we get a draft copy of that before?
Yes.
Monday?
As soon as I make one.
Thank you.
I'm learning, Tabitha has been great. I've been learning a lot about Google Forms and a lot of other good stuff too, so. Yeah.
Isn't it just like the feds though, to put out something and then you need lawyers to figure out what they said? That's just.
At the end, after they send the preliminary, then they're gonna send the final, so not only do you have to do the first one, then you gotta go back and compare the second one to the first one, so.
But I will say though, that there may be a little bit more, it seemed like the first time around, nobody knew. We started spending and then everybody was scared about what we spent it on. So I think clarity up front may be a little bit better for our boots on the ground. Although it does take, you know, a rocket scientist or lawyer to figure it all out, but.
No matter what, the lawyers always.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's good times or bad, the lawyers.
Yeah.
I always prefer to ask my lawyer up front. That's just my.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I can move on to the county administrator's report. Close out my report. So green boxes, solid waste update. Yeah, I had no idea this would be my #1 thing when y'all interview me. I'm very familiar with the habits of bears. And apparently they like buffets on Sunday night is what I'm learning as well. They really like to get into a couple boxes on Sunday night. So in any case, we have, as you know, you requested before, and we've checked again on the status of the additional bear supposedly resistant boxes that Mr. Coleman suggested for some of his travels. And people do think that they should be a little bit better. They are a little pricier, but we'll give it a shot. In addition to that, we have put up some posters that are going up, I believe, today on several of the sites where we continue to have the most challenges. The things that the public can do to assist is #1, and this is what the posters get at, is if people would please close the boxes. No box is very resistant when it's open. And so if people could close them, that will eliminate a large portion of the problem. And the other thing that I think would be very helpful is we apparently have some folks who have been trying to feed the bears on purpose. And that is creating, unfortunately, an unsafe situation for some of our staff. As Monday, they came up on the fridge, came on bear up there when they came to empty the dumpsters, and he was kind enough to cross the street, lay down about 15 feet on the other side of the road, waited till they finished their work, and as the truck pulled out, went right back. So they're very smart animals. Some of us have discussed.
Well trained bear.
Yeah, so we will continue on with some of those things. I've also spoken to the game warden, and he's supposed to be going to some of our key sites. We have 8 to 10 green box sites that are frequent bear havens, if you will. So we'll keep working through that, but he's supposed to be visiting more often, and the biologist that's assigned to us is on vacation, but she's supposed to call next week with some other thoughts, hopefully. So we will keep moving forward on that, but eventually, of course, if this doesn't subside at some point, we'll probably have to give some thought to pulling some of those boxes for the safety of our citizens and our staff. Because of course, you don't want somebody to come and bring trash and end up running into a bear. That's probably not good for them or the bear.
I really think we're about there in Floyd Ridge. I mean, they're absolutely, I'm getting emails every day, sometimes more, or calls every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and I can just show you some of the ones from today that.
They probably look a lot, well, it's probably the same as the last time.
But it's even to the point that, you know, they'll have, Sheriff had the trustees out, cleaned it up one day, the next day,
Couldn't tell what it done anything.
I mean, they had dumpsters worth of stuff drove down the woods. It's just an unimaginable amount of stuff. I mean, I keep getting calls and keep getting emails about people that have close encounters or something. I mean, I'm really thinking we need to pull those, and even if it's for 2 or 3 months, and just let the bear find somewhere else to eat, and then maybe put them back. But
We need to post a sign telling them it's temporary thing.
and where's the location?
The other location.
Ahead of time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
want to give it 30 days at least to advertising.
Yeah, we don't,
You think you?
Oh, I know. I'm aware. I just.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I didn't mean it in that respect.
No, it's just-
I was really hoping that we could use that site would be the test site for the bear resistant. Throw it right in.
Absolutely.
And see,
So
but
I've got a list of other ones.
that one right there.
But that one there, the problem with that one is I think there's people feeding them there.
Yeah.
And so that's where the real, I get people talking about seeing bears in other dumpsters, but for whatever reason, Lake Ridge is, the bears are getting really tamed there. Or sort of tamed. Tamed enough that they're gonna interact with
I know,
you.
like at the sites on Route 8 to 9 that they do their damage, the problem is on those roads, at that site, the cameras we do have, well, the cars trip them, so they run out of storage before they even get to the bears doing it. And I know the sheriff, I think, was looking into maybe looking at a different type cameras or something, so hopefully we can help him with that or do something to.
that's where you've seen some evidence that they've been fed down there too.
Yes, that is another site that there's evidence that people are being purposely.
You know, I've gotten a couple calls where people are literally taking paintball guns with them to ward off the bears when they get down the garbage. And that's starting to get to the point that it's just not a good
If
thing.
braver than I am, I'll tell you that. If I'm gonna take something to ward off bears, it's not gonna be a paint gun.
I just saw here, and at some point you shoot the bear, and the bear finally has enough, you know, it's like, is that all you got?
Let me show you how it's done.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Well, one good note, if I might, is, as you know, you authorized me at the last meeting to move forward with fencing in Indian Valley. We did check with Montgomery County Public Schools about their cooperative language, and so we also contacted their fence contractor. They turned out to be $3,000 more than what the previous bid we got, and it was going to be $4,000 more if we waited another 30 days from that same person. So we went back, and the original folks were kind enough to say, of course, we would still love to build your fence. And so they have committed to be done with the fence by the end of June at the latest, hopefully soon.
Senator Wade has comparative. The site is now in, made as a recreational park for so you can spin your tires. So we need, in effort to be a good steward of that money that was spent, we need to get that immediately upon completion, those boxes placed.
Okay,
So it has limited.
yes, we will do that. And as you recall, that was we went ahead and contracted for 3 sides of fencing there because of the wind.
Right, yeah.
And it is designed in a way that if we decide at some point to do a 4th side with some, we can do that as well.
And I do appreciate the diligence, and I think it's prudent to wait until the fencing is put up, out of respect for the neighborhood before we place those boxes. Because I know it's continuing to delay, but I think it's the best interest of the community to wait for the neighbors.
And did that company help with the design? Did they aid in helping, or?
No, that was our staff between Mark here, building inspector, building official, and Cheryl and Jay. They worked on that all together.
Excellent.
Do you remember the specs on the height of that? The 14 or 16 feet?
I think it was
14?
Thank you. I'll check.
If it's beyond 10.
Okay, I'll check. We'll check.
14.
The wind that comes through there, 10.
14 seems to stick in my head.
Okay, I might be mistaken.
You can still be whatever, like with them little things.
Yeah.
You see on Skylock 13 and
Yeah.
We're down there on Phoenicia.
Yeah.
And I did have one other piece of good news related to solid waste. We received a no issues letter from DEQ about the transfer station.
Yeah, that was.
Which is really good news and a sign of a lot of good effort. We have had some other, and that happened after, it turns out we had another inspection from BOS, from Virginia OSHA. And they did find some issues there, which were primarily things like cleaning out the sink a little better and stuff like that. So very minor, but will be taken care of by the end of the week. So that's all good. And
Before you leave waste, guys, in my travels, I run across a citizen, and I think they had already talked to you about it, but they were very concerned about the dumpsters being cleaned out at 3 o'clock in the morning
okay.
next to their home. I think they had already sent you an email maybe, but anyway, or somebody at the office, but I knew our guys was getting out early. I just didn't realize it was quite that early, but maybe they could, and I know they can't run zigzag too bad, but maybe they could start somewhere other than, if they're gonna run between 3 and 5, maybe they could pick up somewhere other than next to somebody's home.
Okay. Yes, I asked Cheryl to put together, and Jay to put together a detailed schedule of when they are where. And so it goes for pages. But you're right, there's one of the gentlemen races out at 2:30 in the morning to 11 a.m.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I get regular complaints about I can't store regular dumping those dumpsters in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
But I always tell them, well, would you rather have full and overflowing and blowing in your yard empty?
Well, this person is gonna have some clients live in with them that need daily attention, and there's concern about that waking them up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And where these are located, and I'll get with you, where these are located, I think they could be emptied on the end run instead of first thing.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
But you know, you can like how to check the school. The school's probably a mile as the crow flies from my house. And they will empty them really, really early morning. I'm assuming because they don't want to go there when kids are around. But I can hear it sometimes if the windows are open like this time of year. That'll wake me up, and I'm probably a mile away.
Well, imagine if you live right
Yeah,
on top of
that's
it.
loud. It's very loud.
Just thought,
Yes,
I'm just relaying. So,
okay.
2:30 to 11, huh?
Yeah, that's the count.
maybe we need to readjust the times. I mean, that's,
Yep.
Interesting. How is the altered schedule, is that still being published as far as the transfer station hours?
It is still being published, and we are still running just a couple of people per evening and on Saturday, but there are people coming. And I did tell the folks out there that they only needed to have one employee. Normally they have a solid waste and a recycling employee, and you can just have one person there to make it a little easier. So we continue to have that published, and have started on the application to make those hours permanent if you all want us to do that. I have to apply to DEQ to get permission to that, and it'll be approved. Along with $350.
And having one person there, then that leaves you more, you can rotate the schedules, get it around. And if things start picking up, we can always go back to 2.
And as you recall, you have, in your budget, you also have, one more position out there, that if you keep that in your budget, that will also help with a lot of these issues. So, I
It's
appreciate
sort
that.
of surprising there, no more than that. I said, it's sort of surprising no more than that's coming in.
Yeah.
Well, I talked to 1 or 2 people in my recent travels, and I mentioned the hour change, and they weren't even, well, really, they changed the hours there, so.
I'm not sure that the word has completely made the circle.
I don't think it has.
Well, we will continue to push that out. Tabitha's been kind enough to push it out on social media and do some
I will
Facebook
say
task
that
force, so we will continue.
The tire idea, that made circles, and everybody's tickled to death of that. They're asking, when's the next one? When's the next one? So,
Tires are very expensive to dispose of.
well, that's what I'm saying, we can't do those too often, but maybe occasionally.
That's not 30 days, just take it.
Uh,
They can take them any day.
oh, yeah.
That's great. And then the final thing on solid waste is we did, because at one point we thought our recycling numbers were low. They turned out to be actually pretty good, 22.6%. And between that and the change in hours, we put together a flyer that I gave to Dr. Wheeler to encourage that students are supposed to take home, and they're actually doing lesson plans right before school is out to try to encourage folks to teach their parents to recycle and come to the transfer station, and what you can take to the transfer station and what the hours are. So we're continuing to do some of that. I'm learning Canva too. Other items, if I might, Mr. Chair, I would be, I'll leave the personal agreement towards the end. I met earlier with our elections registrar, and we have been given the possibility of participating in a cyber navigation pilot program that will be offered through Virginia Tech. Essentially, they're doing a summer training program around election security and cyber security. And one of the folks who's teaching that is looking for communities that might be willing to let some of their students come and help us and work on some manuals and things. So it's very preliminary, so I don't have anything formal to bring to you, other than to make sure that you are aware of it, and if something is clear, Scott's aware of, and we'll see what it turns out to be, but wanted to let you know that's a possibility. The three remaining things. The tourism agreement, as that was discussed on Thursday evening, as we noted earlier. Of course, we provided Kayla from the town, myself, worked pretty diligently on that, and I went through it and generally had a positive response. There were a couple of things that we still probably need to clarify, but generally they wanted to move forward, and I got corrections or suggestions back from our attorney this afternoon as well. Most of them were not of substance. They're primarily questions about you need to clarify this and change the capitalization here, some of those kind of things. The language that the piece that we left open, you might recall from our last meeting, was how do you get in and out of the agreement, and so what's in there now that came from Steve was to essentially make it a 2-year agreement, but people can terminate with so many months' notice, and the number of months was left open, obviously, for discussion, but that it would not be a number of hours or days, but a couple of months would be the understanding around that. So those are some of the high-level items around that. Pat and myself and Kayla also met last week and started working on a draft posting and position description as requested by the Tourism Development Council. And so I have drafted up our notes and gave it my best shots, and now I've got it ready to send to those two ladies to review, make sure it is representative of what we said, and as soon as we do, I'll send it back to you all. And we'll share that beyond, but I think we're in a pretty good spot, and we have really good common thinking about what that role needs to be. which I think is to me very, very critical that we're all very aligned on that, and we seem to be. So I'm excited about that. I think that's most of what I have on that item, unless there's questions.
Do you know for sure when that position is going to be completely open?
Well,
When is the person leaving? Definitely.
well, we don't have an agreement after the end of June, so
Yeah.
technically the position's open.
Well, I know.
At that point, once we have
Right,
another agreement.
but
Our current tourism director has stated that she is willing to work at least through the month of July and possibly into August
if necessary.
if necessary. And it would be contingent on the hire.
Right.
The issue I see is if we drag it out much longer,
Right.
then you got to post the job, then you got to do interviews, and you hire somebody.
And they have to give notice if they have to.
I mean, here we are, our next meeting's in June.
Hey,
It might be hard to get somebody by August. We're only 2
or
months
July.
away. We're really 2 months away from August.
Well, do you think the agreement of this should be in shape where we can have a copy before our next day meeting
Sure.
and then?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just,
we're gonna have to make a decision and they're gonna have to too, a final decision, one way or the other. Pretty quick if we're gonna meet those deadlines.
right. So, yes, first of all, yes, and apologies, Steve just was able to get to it today. So he sent his changes today. And so, but again, most of them are just around the specific language about termination. Some of the other items I believe were under discussion in the town conversation was, of course, you both wanted to have a flat amount. The town has had a flat amount up to this point, and you all have now also indicated you would like to have a flat amount and what that amount would be. I think there was also some discussion about wanting to make sure that we have an opportunity to try the agreement a little bit and make sure it's right, and then hopefully let it sit for a while. So that was kind of just a general discussion. And then, of course, there's the other question that you want to go for. But that's the primary items related to that. And just to Mr. Yoder's point, if I might dispute, so in addition to our position being open, because of course Pat's decided at some point here she's going to do something else, there are 2 of the other counties in our region are also going to be looking for people in that role. Now, they were probably given, what one of them is probably a very different type person. I don't know that we'd be drawing the same.
Yeah, correct.
Yes. But the other might. So that's why I tried to be very, and I'll send it out as soon as I get something, get it out to Kayla and Pat to make sure what I wrote is representative of our thoughts. But I will send it to you. I try to be as engaging in my posting as possible.
Chairman, would it be appropriate maybe to think about a budget meeting and a discussion of this as a special meeting next week?
We also, if I might, Mr. Chair, we do have one other EDA related item that we would need to probably take up probably next week, preferably Tuesday. Works for you all. Ladina is on vacation this week, so she has some kind of more pressing economic development things. So that was going to be one of the things on our request today.
Are your Wednesdays still a good day for you, Justin?
They are. Wednesdays, first half of the day.
So we're talking about during the day?
Yeah, Monday morning, Wednesday morning? Or at night? I don't know. I'm
Which
good.
days are going to rain? That's the day that I will.
Okay, well, let me see.
Sword joke.
Yeah, you're so good.
Well, next month.
Yeah, that's great, right?
You're out on you.
We're doing Wednesday morning.
Mhm.
Well, Are the dues still on?
6 o'clock.
Alright,
I'm loving myself too.
I'm loaded with the dew on. Yeah.
Mornings would be better for me, but
8:30.
whatever, I mean,
I can make it work.
if it needs to be, I mean, you could always call a special meeting when y'all figure out. I don't know if you know a date that you need to come off the replay.
I don't know that, we just probably need to meet next week and probably earlier.
Yes.
Earlier in the week, so Wednesday would probably work, but probably not much later if you can.
Wednesday morning. Yeah, we can do it. I do think that we need to decide on this tourism thing, because if we don't go with an agreement with the town, then we're gonna have to potentially change the budget a little bit to try to.
They kind of go hand in hand at this point, a little bit.
I mean, I hate to lose that position.
Wednesday morning, June 2nd at 8:30.
Sounds good.
And
Well,
we'll
on my
do
calendar.
budget, tourism, and EDS.
June 2nd. 8:30.
Yeah, Sheriff, I might have just a couple of really small, remaining things. One is, you'll see the next item is, just to alert you all, we continue to have scheduling issues with the emergency medical services and staffing concerns around that. I know you all addressed that, a couple of years ago, maybe about 2 years ago. And so, Philip and I and Marcel, and we're bringing Kevin into the discussion as well. I think we'll sit down and start trying to work through and bring some different solutions back to you. My suspicion is some of them may not be entirely traditional, so I wanted to let you know that we might be going down a slightly different path, just depending on what everyone comes up with. But just to give you an idea of the challenges, so this is the schedule for the month of June, and the pink spaces are the ones that need to be filled still. So we have a challenge.
They running them to death. You
They
know,
are, I mean, there's been so many calls.
yeah.
Well, we probably need to find a different way to approach that, and so maybe I should talk about scheduling.
That gravity, I mean, there's been a lot of those gravity calls that tie up, yeah. Yeah.
So we're gonna try to do some data analysis and look at what type of calls and all of those kind of things. I know it's been approached before, and certainly what y'all did was helpful for a while, but it continues to be an issue.
One of the things we talked about years ago, but I wonder if it wouldn't be good to bring up with the school again, is just as part of their revamp on their vocational schools, having the EMS class there and possibly allowing kids to learn that skill.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's probably a lot of people in the county that would, it's not I mean, it's expensive, but it's something that you can do even part-time and make a little bit of money. So it's something that we may be able to solve some of our problems if we just had more people trained coming out of high school. And it seemed like when I ran volunteer rescue, that the younger folks were the ones that really had the time to do it. Once you start a family and your business, you start a business, whatever, your life started getting busy. But when I was first married, I can remember that there was a group of young people that they would go at Station 3 and volunteers and stay the weekend, a group of guys, and they would just have bumps. They'd move in for the weekend, run calls all weekend, got to hang out with their buddies, and then go home, go to work Monday, and it worked really well because they handled so many calls, plus they got to just hang out with all their friends. So it just makes me wonder if there could be some way. We talked about it in the past and nothing really ever happened. I was wondering if maybe that would long-term help.
Yeah, those would be some of the things, that's an excellent idea that we will probably start looking at, I mean, some of the challenges are clearly that, you know, we are 70 to 72% of our population leaves the county to work, which means they're not around during the day to be available to answer calls, and may not, because of their commute, may not be as willing to volunteer in the evening. So that's one of the challenges. And then, of course, the pay scale in some of the surrounding counties is higher and continues to move up, and to the point, and then, of course, you have a couple of private sector organizations that are actually paying people to get those credentials.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of challenges we're facing. So we'll be trying to come up with something new. We just wanted to let you get that on your radar and let you know we'll be looking at maybe trying to bring some new ideas to you. The final thing I had, unless any Steve want to know, is the 4-H folks had a photography contest this last couple of weeks, and there were a number of wonderful submissions, and several from all 3 age groups. And so 4-H folks I've talked to, and they said they would be thrilled if we would like to take some of those photographs and get them handled professionally and put them up here. So that will require some cost. But this, I just thought I would show this to you all. This is the senior winning picture so this is the oldest age group winning picture.
Looks like one of yours.
Not white.
So we thought if we could, get some funding together to pay to have these blown up nicely and put up around here. And no offense to whoever did the original interior design and decorating, but I somehow feel like some of the pictures of some of the beautiful sunsets and some of our wonderful livestock and a lot of other really great pictures here that are from our children in the community would be a good replacement for aging pictures of the beach. So that's the last thing I had. So
It's a great idea.
yeah, and then we can hopefully, as our kids do it every year, we can start rotating.
Yeah, rotate.
Annapolis.
Thank you.
I think it'd be great too the high school has an art
Yeah.
display every year, so I mean, if you could tie that in somehow, that would.
Yeah.
But I've seen them up at the school board, the school board
Okay,
office,
right.
they display sometimes, so I wonder if there'd be a possibility we could display them
That's what she said.
for a year, and then,
Yeah,
that would be great.
I would.
And what I'd love to have also happen would be for us to recognize those students here and let them see how their picture is displayed, because that can create a lifelong, it could literally propel somebody into a career.
Yes.
And I think that would be great.
Some of them are, that one I just thought was particularly interesting.
When a child receives that kind of recognition, it's an amazing,
She knew her office.
force. Yeah, right. That's a little bit.
There was no submission to Christmas here. There were several with cats and goats.
Okay.
And no goats.
Her dumpsters are theirs.
Mr. Chairman, as hard as it is to believe, that is everything that I had on my list.
So we've taken. Good thing we got your offer on. We're gonna wait on the budget discussions, any more budget discussions till Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, I think you had a few more things to. Does that work? No, I don't have staff, if that's what we're doing.
What, are we getting pretty close to needing some action here?
Yep.
Had our regular meeting.
If there's any, I hate to hold this, but if there's information, I'd kind of like to be able to ponder on it. If this, and also I'd like to request, if possible, if we could, on the community services funding that we talked about, it wouldn't be too much to ask if maybe we could receive some documentation on those that are, I know we started giving to formula-based funding and those that are not. If we could maybe have a list of those services that are formula-based and those that are not. As we look at that to try to trim things as much as possible. we don't, I guess what I meant, prior to needing things to think about, we don't necessarily have to go as deep as we need, but no longer, just so we can be thinking on it till next Wednesday.
I'll say her on that.
Yeah, okay.
I was just asking what the process.
Yeah, I just, if I remember right, Ms. Ryan said they were big things, so I want to be able to mull them over.
Well, the major one left that is, the major item left that's highlighted is, in two places, under county administrator, computer supplies technical support, and then also under, the maintenance area where we have computer technology. And if you add those two amounts together, it equals the amount we're currently paying our computer support company. We separated it in two different areas in case we wanted to try a different approach in the future.
Yep.
And I guess that was the major thing left to talk about, is how do we want to approach how we handle computer services.
I yield to you. Did you have other things to add to Cindy?
Just to add a little bit more on this item, so as you know, we've had the same IT vendor since we went through all that. You all went through that before I got here, and they've been helpful to us about that, but it also means that we don't have anyone in-house. And so part of the staff thinking is that we've probably reached a point that our recommendation is going to be to move forward with doing some internal staffing, make people available. And we need to do it in a manner that makes sure that all of everything stays secure and we don't repeat any of those terrible things. So we'll need to do that very carefully. But that's kind of where we're starting to think about going. But that's the amount of money that we put in there, because in addition to that, and I mentioned to some of you a little in passing, my hope is if we have IT staff available to us all the time, that we would be able to start looking at ways to better use technology to improve staff efficiency and workflow and those kind of things, to make better use of the time and expertise of our staff, and doing a lot less kind of data entry and chasing things after the fact, and would allow us to keep up in advance with a lot more things and have more data to report to you all as well about how do things look with this set of requests or these types of hours. We would have more of that available. So that would be part of what we would be hoping to get out of that person, is some expertise to help us with that kind of work.
Well, I am completely behind an staff person to handle this. I was in favor of that many months ago, and I am very glad to hear that staff has come to you and said those same things, Dr. Millsaps, and I really appreciate all of you looking at things and kind of deciphering where the money is and putting it in the right categories. But I am in favor of getting an on-staff IT person here for Floyd County government.
So, just so that I understand, the money that got moved to the county administrator line, is that for future hiring, or is that the other line items for future hiring?
The one under county administrator was what we were thinking of for the future hiring.
Okay.
And then the other line is in maintenance.
Yes. Even if we hire somebody on staff, they would not be able to handle the kind of security. The on-staff person, I think we're thinking more of as far as setting up email accounts and doing things like Tabitha has so kindly helped us with on her. But it's keeping her from her normal job.
Right,
I mean,
Right.
I mean, I think that one of the biggest things I've heard from departments, from constitutional officers, throughout is, it's not, it would be nice to have someone when they need help that can come help, rather than say, okay, next Tuesday we'll schedule, okay, now I'm stuck till next Tuesday, or call someone and now I don't,
Right.
I do think someone on staff would be really beneficial, not just for our office, but for the sheriff and the treasurer, the whole system, really. And even for supervisors that can't figure out email addresses and such. I'm not as advanced as some. I've had to hunt down I think my first email address, my first county email, I think I had to corner someone at a ballgame to get it programmed on my phone, because there was no catching them when they were here.
Yeah, I remember.
Caught there.
What goes on the ball games?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. The last thing that I think I had to report to you all budget-wise is just to alert you all a little bit about, of course, we have this wonderful ACES program, which assists some of our residents and their children with getting their children to be able to afford to go to the local community college. And of course, our chairman's been very involved in getting that work done for us. In other counties that are a part of our community college system who have a similar program to ACES, the ACES program is subsidized by the county. We have been very fortunate that our program has been heavily subsidized by the Tobacco Commission funds. We have been advised, though, that over time, the amount of support that will be available from the Tobacco Commission for this effort may well go down. We don't know, well, there's already been some discussions along that line, and so the person that runs that program came and talked to Cindy and I, and to alert us to that. Our primary representative in that group, I think, has been advocating, is our understanding, and so some of the cutbacks that have been put on the table have been kind of brought back halfway. So I think they're in a position that folks who are in the program now can certainly continue, is our understanding. But just going forward, that might become something you have to consider as part of your budget discussions if you want to continue the program. And so just wanted to make you aware as you think about what your budget looks like. We are hopeful that it wouldn't be a big impact this fiscal year, but it could have some impact this fiscal year, and would potentially have a greater fiscal impact in following.
I will see I believe I will see on Thursday night our New River Community College representative, and I will personally bring this up to her and talk with her about it. That money, no matter what happens, it would be sad if the Tobacco Commission put so much restrictions on allowing students to actually, some of the students here in Floyd County are the first young people to go to college in their families. And, college may not be for everybody, but a 2-year program that allows a student to develop into a career for their life is really, really important. And I can't think of a better way that the Tobacco Commission money could be spent than educating our children and not putting financial burdens on them at the time that they're getting a 2-year degree. So I hope that the Tobacco Commission will reconsider, but I will do everything in my power personally here as a supervisor to try to make sure that we fund that program, because the work that's been done, especially from our chairman, Mr. Turman, and leading forward how we've supported it, and Cindy has had a lot to do with working with our schools on that program as well. I want to make sure we continue it, especially coming out of this pandemic where things have been just so rocky, and it would really be important to me to continue that. So it's just my thoughts on the matter.
Two things. Reminder, to y'all, whoever's, and Linda talking about the train,
Yeah, right.
rail, that'd be wonderful to have that information Wednesday.
Yep.
And on solid waste with the increased tipping fees, could you see what that, if we pass that along, what that amount would be on our revenue side? If we, to those contractors and whatnot that we charge, tipping fees?
We get so little in tipping, we don't
Yeah.
even begin to cover.
I'm sure it's nowhere close, I'm just curious if
We
there's
might,
a.
we might collect 100,000 in tipping over the course of a year,
Mhm.
but we've spent $1 million.
Sure, and most of it's household waste. I'm just curious if,
Right.
is there a small drop in the bucket that if we pass those fees along that we would collect them?
We'll get a small drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I mean, I would just hate for, if there's contractors in the county that are, that we always pass the cost along, like, you know, we didn't charge them extra, but the cost to get it over there was X, and that's what it costs to bring it to us, then our taxpayers start carrying the
Right.
weight of that as fees go up. You know, you want to keep that even if you could.
Yeah, and take, it's been a while since I looked at it, you may want to take a real close look to that solid waste ordinance. It seems to me like there's a specific section in there on specific things to follow to raise fees and stuff.
Well, I just thought it'd be
I'm
worth
not sure.
checking because I hate, you know, I'm just thinking if, let's say that a contractor from Roanoke came in to redo the school roof and they took everything to the landfill, it's a shame that our taxpayers would have to cover the cost of hauling it over, but that contractor should have. I mean, that's part of doing business, you know.
I agree.
You know, I'm sure that,
And I don't want to overcharge them, but on the other hand, I want to collect what it's going to cost us to do it.
At least break even.
Break even, yeah, I mean, I think it's only fair for our taxpayers.
I'm sure the increase probably had, if Floyd County, so what did we see, 50% plus extra garbage going through our transfer station and heading over, right? It was almost 60%, wasn't it? The excess of people throwing their
Oh,
trash away and spring cleaning, the pandemic situation that developed.
I couldn't tell you.
So, I mean, if Floyd had that, you know that the surrounding counties that are part of that regional landfill over in Pulaski, I like I said earlier, I can't remember when they last raised it, and I'm sure that probably had a lot to do with it. They were probably had a lot, because it wasn't just Floyd County that cleaned their
More money
houses.
that way, that should be.
Yeah, well, they realized, they worked hard, I guess, I don't know. I don't know.
Ready for a motion to adjourn?
Yes. That will help.
I move we adjourn until Wednesday, the 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Oh, listen p.m.
Just in second, so.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Yoder.